帝国王子メディオ、剣士シンビオス、傭兵ジュリアン、いよいよクライマックス、シャイニングフォースIII。燃えるぜセガサターン。
Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again I am your host for this randomised gaming video, Random Gamer Riven, and I'm just going to talk a bit about the Shining Force 3 Premium Disc, which you're going to see an absolute wonderful showcase of here. So the Premium Disc was a fantastic bonus disc for those Japanese owners and Western ones. I actually sent away for a copy myself. And basically, if you bought all three parts of Shining Force 3, you could send away for this effectively collector's disc. So there are 6 modes, and I'm going to jump into each of them just to showcase each of them, because although there are quite a few videos of the Premium Disc on YouTube, I noticed most only covered the battles and few actually went into the various different modes. So as you can see here, straight off we have the Gallery Viewer, which is an absolutely fantastic resource as it allows you to view the various characters, weapons, promotion and perform various moves and special attacks, and you can see all the animation. It is absolutely stunning. So I'm just going to go through and demo a selection of characters in this mode. Now, one thing that's actually quite interesting, if you paid attention to the various changes between all 3 scenarios, the graphics for characters used in Scenario 1 were vastly improved by the time you got to Scenario 3. So some of the Scenario 1 models don't look that detailed in comparison to, like, as you see here, the Medion Scenario 3 model. A lot of the models, by the time they got to Scenario 2 and 3, were vastly improved, and it's quite interesting. A lot of them were quite badly untextured in the Scenario 1, and clearly Camelot got more to grips with the Saturn over the course of the development of the 3 games and were able to add in more features. So this is Symbius from Scenario 1. You can do defensive moves, special attacks, depending whether each of the characters have the moves, and there's you can see almost every model in this mode. There are 1 or 2 missing. The additional monsters added in for the Premium Disc are missing, and there are 1 or 2 enemies that are missing. A few unique enemies, like a couple of the Imperial Generals from Scenario 1, aren't present. So Fans and Garzel and a couple of others. Admittedly, their sprites weren't that different to the standard troops, but they were missing. Some of the earlier Scenario 1 models are actually missing there. Instead, you've got the later Scenario 2 and 3 versions. And a few things like the ice crystals you saw in one mission. Another quite major one I noticed is missing is things like the Guardian statue from Scenario 1. You also have the Rainbloods in their spirit form from Scenario 2's missing as well. So not everything's here, but just about everything's here. There's also the colour variants of some of the enemies are missing as well. But I suppose that's like minor thing, just the colours. But it would have been nice to have everything here. So you got standard Dark Mage. I think this is the Scenario 2 version. The Scenario 1 version didn't actually have much of a face originally. They added in a face model later. It really is actually quite interesting if you compare the 3 scenarios, how the graphics actually improve. About a year after the release of Scenario 1, you got Scenario 3, so they still had an additional time to sort of hone, because by Scenario 1 they'd done the engine and it was just adding the various facts. Interestingly, in one of the interviews they did admit they actually adjusted the story as they went on and via fan feedback for each version, so literally they were Camelot were adjusting it on the fly. And there is actually, I've included all the movies in this video as well, so while I'm going through all the characters, I don't want to talk too much over the movie section. I show you all the movies, including the making of movie, where they detail the history, and it was interviewed with one of the Takahashi brothers. For those of you who don't know, the Shining Force series was effective, or I should say Shining series, Shining Force just part of the series. The Shining series was effectively created by the Takahashi brothers, and they originally worked on it at Climax. They then moved to create their own company called Sonic Software Planning, who, after they released the game on the PlayStation, were later renamed Camelot Software. and they worked on the original game Shining in the Darkness up to the Shining Force III premium disc. Now, interestingly, there's actually a little developer diary on the premium disc, and basically Sega and Camelot over the course of development had quite a bad falling out, unfortunately, by all accounts. It seems that Sega didn't want to help Camelot that much during development, as they were started to move on about the Dreamcast, because they were concerned the Saturn was already a losing battle at that point. And Camelot ran into problems with the audio and a few other issues, and apparently there are some complaints on the premium disc that they weren't able to fix those as quickly as they'd have liked to. Noticeably, companies like Treasure are actually credited, and I think they had to go to some other Saturn developers to ask for help with some of the audio, because originally in Scenario 1 there were some quite nasty audio bugs. One in particular drops out some of the sound channels during some of the songs, and you have to sort of start and pause it to fix it. There were some odd bugs in Shining Force 3, but the gameplay is absolutely marvellous. This really is the pinnacle of the Shining series, and unfortunately every game that came after Shining Force 3, because it wasn't designed by the Takahashi brothers in Camelot, well, they just weren't anywhere near as good. And generally all the later games, I actually have a collection of most of them, and aside from the collecting factor, I can't say I'd recommend that many. Some are alright, but they're just not a patch on the Camelot outings. For many people, the Shining series died when Camelot stopped working on them, and unfortunately these days Camelot are relegated to doing pretty rubbish Mario Golf and tennis sims, and I really wish they got a chance to do more RPGs. Certainly Fire Emblem could benefit with their experience. And there we have the central villain, Balsamo. Well, he's the central villain who you think is the central villain. There's actually a true protagonist in the game that's revealed at the very, very end in part of the hidden ending, and basically he's been the one manipulating the scenes. As many fans have pointed out, and I myself know, that ending basically was a precursor for a follow-up that never occurred, because ultimately the true villain of Shining Force 3 got away, and there aren't many games where the true villain gets away. In fact, he's got away twice now, so it's quite nice that they've been building a certain character up to be the central villain of the series. Certainly the later series, chronologically, timeline-wise, interesting if you want to know. Shining Force is the original game in the storyline, and it's actually the most recent is Shining Force 3, but there's a huge gap between Shining the Holy Ark and Shining Force 3 between the rest of the series. Oddly enough, Shining in the Darkness is supposed to be story-wise the one that comes before Shining the Holy Ark, but there's basically like 1,000, 2,000 year gap. In fact, the whole Vandal Kingdom that occurs in the Shining the Holy Ark and Shining Force 3 story appears to have arisen out of nowhere from the Shining in the Darkness. So that is the character viewer. As you see, that's an absolutely beautiful thing. So this is the gallery viewer, and you can view all the character artwork and prototyping artwork as well. There's some really nice art here. Most of this art, so this is Symbius, most of this art actually appears in the Shining Force 3 art book / encyclopedia, which I do actually have a copy of. It's an absolutely stunning book. Some of it doesn't though, which is quite interesting. Notice the prototyping and some of the additional character art's actually missing, and there's even a few bits of art that I subsequently found on the net and stuff over the years that are present, that were basically present in a digital format, but not actually in either of the art books or the premium disc. So there's a whole rafter of Shining Force 3 art out there that wasn't actually included in either the disc or the art book as well. So there's Fuding. I could never pronounce his name. It's Fynnnding. It's like Fuding, Hato. So there's the Scenario 1 cast. This, of course, the Scenario 2 cast, and of course, Scenario 2 was never released in the West, as was Scenario 3 in the premium disc. So basically, some of these characters we know via translations. Robbie the Robot, although I think his name might have been slightly tweaked for the English one. There was a weirdness where in the Japanese version the characters were called via their sort of how they acted, and that was changed for the English one because calling enemies like equal and profound didn't quite, characters like profound and equal was a bit silly. I mean, calling to Bolt, I think he's treasonous or tyrant, so it kind of gives the plot away of his character, and like Ray, there's some weird naming in the Japanese version. I think it was worth that they changed it. So there's Julian, the hero from Scenario 3, who also of course appeared in Scenario 1, and if you only played Scenario 1 you might believe he died. He was also, Julian is actually a carry-on character from Shining the Holy Ark. So there's Edmund. One of the interesting things about Shining Force 3 is there has been some debate as to whether there was a legal issue, because in Japan, Camelot Software Planning, or then Sonic, self-published Shining the Holy Ark, and I believe they maintained copyright of those characters that appeared in that game when it came to this one. So there's Profound, or Prodoon as he was called in the English one, with just Pendorf. This is Spirel, or Spirited, yes. If you recognise her from Scenario 1, don't kill her in the battle in the sewers. I'm just gonna, and there's Marquis. I kind of want to show you the fairy one, but I might get into trouble on YouTube if I showed you Primula/Primrose art, because you actually get to see fairy boobies in that artwork. So there's Britanniman, the King of the Republic. This is Brutus. I think he was like bribable or something in the Japanese version. Basically, there's some of their character traits. So here's Emperor Domateric, or Dominator he was called, the main father, and one we have set out to rescue in Scenario 1, Magaron, one of the Imperial Princes. He doesn't actually appear much in the game, and next to him is brother Awart, who is the final boss in Scenario 1, who's the mastermind behind the Emperor's kidnapping, along with the Balsamo cult. These are all the Republic, quite a few, so that here's Franz. He was a character that's actually meant to be quite a major Imperial general, but he's killed off quite early in Scenario 1. Same with Garzel. Both of them are killed off relatively quickly in Scenario 1. These are the Rainbloods, who are like the elite Imperial troops who you don't see till Scenario 2. So Brestbury, he's another character, briefly appears in Scenario 2, I think, and then mainly appears in Scenario 3. Rogan, who was actually due to be a playable character in Scenario 3 originally, till they swapped him for Unamo. And then we have the Balsamo Sect, and Balsamo Sect and Vandal, an Innoventer character. So there's Bashanda, File, and we've got Decidron, Goriah, standard monk artwork. With the two weapons, Valkyrie and... well, Valkyrie was mistranslated Walkeray, but its theme is actually based on the music Ride of the Vampire. And here we have Garm, who, as everyone will know, is actually the true villain of the series. And there we have Balsamo, the main villain of Shining Force 3, until you realise Garm's actually the real puppet master. And Jane, she is actually a hidden character on the premium disc if you didn't defeat her in Scenario 3. And this we have Walkeray in the English one. It should have been translated as Valkyrie though, because the music it actually uses based on Ride of the Valkyries. Of course, the Colossus, although the Colossus didn't actually have a sword. The main Shining Force 3 artwork, there's a few promotional arts here as well. This one was actually used for the demo version, which I've actually got as well. Maybe we'll video the demo version at some point. And we have the soundtrack. There was actually a French version of the soundtrack called Forces of Light, which I've got, which had slightly remixed music and had a few different tracks on it. Now, this is probably the most interesting art, as we have the prototype characters. So that was a cat, girl, beast man. Here we have a gargoyle character. He looks like he was supposed to be Imperial. I really wish these characters had made it into the game. We have a shark beast man. Again, a really nice one. We have pen prototypes, and that dragon one just looks so adorable. It reminds me a bit of the character from Shining Force 2, but it'd been nice to see. And that's Synthesis. She's the mage from Scenario 2, and she again briefly appears in Scenario 1. Then we have a whole selection of additional... Some of this artwork appears in the art book, as I mentioned. All these face arts, and the middle, basically the middle and the bottom lines appear in the art book. And prototype version of the Kraken, which was obviously meant to be a weapon of Balsamo. I really wish they'd had that version actually in it, because I think it certainly would have worked well if you'd done the ship battle and straight after File had summoned like that massive robotic Kraken instead. The Kraken fights with the sort of living one were a bit disappointing. So that's everything from the art gallery I'm going to show you. Maybe at some time I'll cover everything with screenshots and stuff. This is the save creator. I'm only going to briefly show to it. I'm actually going to link to a website in the description that lists the various questions here, because what this feature does here is basically, this is Gabriel, or he's actually the Takahashi spelt backwards in Japanese, but basically Master Gabriel and Faye the Fairy. And basically this allows you to create a Scenario 3 save file without having to play through Scenario 1 and 2, which is quite a bit of work. So he's asking me, do I want to create a save file? And I don't want to go through the questions at this point, but I just thought I'd briefly show you the feature. And no, I'm not going to use it, so I'm just going to, we'll quit out now. But basically it enables you to create a save file. It also allows you to rename all the characters in English, but you can only, the caveat is you can only use 6 characters for each of the names. Now here we go with the movie viewer. I'm going to show you all the movies now, because I don't think all of them have been videoed and shown up on the internet. We've got both endings and the promotional, and this one shows all the intros, so I'm just going to let this roll out and play through.
しろ。通れセガサターンしろ。
3つのドラマの RPG シャイニングフォース3。
セガサターン。
変化するストーリー、進化した RPG シャイニングフォース3シナリオ2。セガサターン。
帝国王子メディオ、剣士シンビオス、傭兵ジュリアン、いよいよクライマックス、シャイニングフォース3。燃えるぜセガサターン。
業界に与えた影響は大きかったんだろうなと。で何かっていうと、僕がだからフォースっていうのでシミュレーション RPG って今呼ばれちゃってるあのゲームを作る前っていうのはもうロールプレイングゲームのこう先行きがこう行き詰まってたっていうのがあったんですね。極論言えばドラゴンクエスト、ファイナルファンタジーがあればもうロールプレイングゲームはいらないのかなっていう風なイメージまで持つような時期だったんですね。でじゃあ我々がそういうのをわざわざこう作る意義っていうのは何っていうと、そのあのタイプじゃない別のタイプのシナリオ性のあるゲームを作るっていうことだと思うんですよね。で それをこう具現化したのが、まあ言ってみればシャイニングフォースの1だった。今回のシャイニングフォース3っていうのはサターンが立ち上がる時からずっと作ってくれというふうに言われ続けてきたんですけども、あえて作らなかった。自分のだから作りたいっていう欲求がもう極限まで高まるまで待ちたかったっていうのが一つあったのと、それから不完全な形で出したくなかった。ある意味次世代機って呼ばれてる、まあ、サターンだとかプレイステーションだとかの、出ているゲームの中でね、究極の形を持っているんじゃないのかなと。多分サターンが発売された直後に、まあ、発売してたらば今回のような、ビジュアルを持ったゲームとしては多分こうデビューさせることはできなかったんじゃないのかなというふうに思うんですね。
1993年秋発売の「シャイニングフォース2」より4年、シリーズ待望の続編がこの冬登場。ソニックとキャメロットの企画力と技術力の粋を結集し、ここに次世代のタクティカル RPG が誕生した。ストーリーシステムシンクロニシティにより3部作だからこそできるゲームの特性を生かしたストーリーの新しい体験の形を実現。シャイニングフォース3、3部作ここに登場。今回のシャイニングフォース3はサターンのシャイニングウィズダム、シャイニングザホーリーアークで培った CG 技術をベースにマップ画面のフルポリゴン化に成功。 CG の立体マップが作り出す臨場感と存在感が RPG の概念を変える。画面の隅々まで描き込まれた美しい 3D のマップ画面はプレイヤーを壮大なスケールのシャイニングホースの世界へと誘う。そしてビジュアルの極めつけはリアルポリゴンによる戦闘画面である。これまでのシリーズの顔ともいえるシネラマバトルを踏襲しながらもさらなるビジュアルのグレードアップを図ったフルポリゴンの戦闘画面。この新しい試みでかつてないほどの戦闘の臨場感を味わってほしい。それではキャラクター紹介を兼ねて新世代バトルシーンをご覧いただこう。シンビオス、アスビニア共和国の少領主コムラードの長男、本シナリオの主人公である。ダンタレス、コムラード軍屈指の戦士。彼の存在により主人公シンビオスたちの共和国軍における存在の重みを持つことになる。マスキュリン、幼少の頃よりシンビオスの付き人として育ったエルフの女魔術師。グレイス、マスキュリンと同じくシンビオスの付き人であるホックスリング系の僧侶。マスキュリンとは唯一無二の親友である。このように戦闘画面ではプレイヤーキャラや敵が縦横無尽に動き回る。プレイヤーは 3D のリアルポリゴンによるバトルシーンを十分に堪能できるであろう。エフェクト画面の充実も刮目に値する。エフェクトの多くがプログラミングで合成されている。そしてフォース3は全く新しいシナリオシステムシンクロニシティを搭載した3部作構成である。主人公がシナリオ1で行動した内容が後のシナリオ2、シナリオ3で影響を持つ。これにより真の意味での3部作構成が実現した。
今回は中身のゲームのシステムも非常に進化してます。ビギナーから、それから今までのフォースのコアユーザーの方々がやってもうおっと思うような進化したシステムが入ってる。ストーリーの体験の仕方ってのは今までと全然違う。データを持っていける。それから各シナリオでやったことっていうのが次のシナリオにも関係していく。だから3部である必然性がある。それからそれをやることによって絶対に映像メディアではできないことをやってるんですね。だからそういう意味では今まで僕は自分でシナリオを書いてきてシナリオが売りだなんて言ったことないんですね。だけど今回は特にシナリオを楽しんでもらいたいなと思います。
RPG では次世代マシン初のオール 3D のゲーム画面、タクティカルバトルからストラテジーバトルにまで進化したゲームシステム、ストーリーの進行にまで新しい方法論を取り入れたシンクロニシティシステム、数々の新システムの搭載と斬新なビジュアルを持ち、新しいシミュレーション RPG の幕開けを告げる。他の追随を許さないゲーム性とビジュアル、そしてストーリーがサターンの RPG の歴史を塗り替える。シャイニングフォース3、この冬登場。
And that was all the videos. I hope you enjoyed that nice look at everything. So there's some great videos there, both endings, one of which I believe the ending of Jane, you have to have actually created a save file where you kept Jane alive at the end. So this is the music test that goes over all the music in the game. You can actually listen to the musics in the scenarios disc, but this is like a finalized version. I'm not going to speak now, I'm just going to let all the audio play out.
なめるな。これで終わりなのか。
ここまでだ。
精霊よ、私に力を。黙示録の裁き。エルベセムよ、我に召喚の力を。
反応が遅いぜ。
これでどうだ。よっ。
ブラッディスピン。逃がしません。
これで終わりだ。
So a nice sample of music there, as you can hear. And finally we'll get to the meat and grind of the premium disc for many, which is the bonus battles section. There were actually interestingly plans to have a couple of additional battles, but they appear to have cancelled them. Certainly there seemed to have been a prototype battle against Glam, but of course you didn't really see Glam's true power, so I think the prototype battle was probably dropped because it was a bit pants. You can save premium disc battles as well, as there's actually 9 fights in total, so it's a good couple of hours of gameplay. Really great value for free discs. You certainly don't get free discs like this anymore from developers. So I'm going to use my completed scenario 3 file, and that means I've actually finished scenario 3 with all the characters unlocked. So I'm going to use Jane, and I'm going to predominantly take a flyer force just because I'm only going to do the Kraken battle. I can't suggest using a flyer only force for much of the later battles, although most of the battles, due to a bug in Igom, Xenon's and Dark Souls placement, it's possible to kill them with just 2 archers if you position them at the very diagonals, and basically they won't attack you and your 2 archers can just defeat them fairly quickly. So I'm taking predominantly archers and flyers for this characters, but yeah, I did find the actual, because they had a bit of a flaw in those fights, slightly annoying the later bugs, the fact that you can literally just use 2 archers to shoot them down, but at least it's nice to have all the various battles, the various classic villains, so Dark Dragon, Xenon, Igom and Dark Soul from the original earlier Shining Force games. Shining Force 1, Shining Force 2, Shining Force Gating Final Conflict and Shining Force CD. So this is the Kraken. Now you can actually use, as you saw there, a save file earlier from any scenario. So you can actually use a scenario 1 battle, but of course you won't get that far. You'll probably be able to beat the Kraken if you have like a max scenario 1. You might even get past the Yasa fight, but you're probably going to struggle when it comes to balls and moat, and you certainly won't beat the hidden bosses. Annoyingly, the Kraken is set at its scenario 2 stats, so it's fairly weak and quite easy to beat. This really is basically a tutorial fight to brace you in, although it's a great fight if you've taken Jane, because Jane is quite badly under-leveled, because she's only playable in the premium disc if you do the good ending in scenario 3. But she comes quite low level, so if you fancy taking her like I did one time, I basically made sure she was the only character that killed all the tentacles, and by the end, by the time I got to Xenon, she was about level 27, so basically I'd use the earlier fights to level her up, because she's quite a really good healer. It's a pity she wasn't made playable in scenario 3 for like when you used a completed save file, but alas, I think in scenario 3 they'd actually hit the character save file limit by all accounts, hence why Rogan had to be removed. So one thing you'll notice here is that some of my characters actually have their names in English, and that's because this save file was created with an English scenario 1 and a Japanese scenario 2 and 3. Fortunately, the Japanese scenario 2 could read an English scenario 1 save file, so basically it pulls the names across and a few other things. But with the rename feature, as I mentioned, you can actually rename the characters in English, but the downside with that is that you can only use 6 letters, whereas if you pull the character names in from scenario 1, they still retain their original lettering. I think Fyding is Fynnding. Yeah, his name's 8 letters, so you'd have to cut off the ing if you were going to use that name editor, but in-game with the scenario 1 save, because they did something weird with the English font, they were able to get the full name. So basically I'm just going to show off all the characters fighting the Kraken. And I'll show off Jane right at the very end with her getting in the finishing blow, just to show what she looks like, because of course you can't play as her normally in the opening 3 scenarios. But Shining Force 3, I mean, it is an absolutely fantastic RPG, and in terms of tactical RPGs, it's probably one of the best ever made. I mean, it really does put most of the Fire Emblem games to shame. In fact, the Fire Emblem team, I think, have always been basically playing catch up ever since Shining Force 3. I think Shining Force 3, as a couple people said, was basically regarded as a killer app almost, because basically it said most of the other tactical RPGs that came afterwards were never quite as good, because of course this was 3 games and they really did some really interesting stuff with the battles, because you had things like moving trains. I think only Vandal Hearts really did something else quite interesting with the battles, but Shining Force 3, moving trains. You have just about everything you could ever want in battles, from giant rocks being thrown down into the scenario 1 where you're basically on the wall and basically the massive rock keeps getting thrown down. You've had reinforcements, some really other cool set piece things in the battles, so everything was really unique and you never felt like you played the same battle twice. Hence why these premium disc battles are actually a bit dull, because they don't have any additional mechanics other than just fighting the enemies, whereas usually you generally had a rule in scenario 1, 2 and 3 where basically you'd sort of get one battle with an interesting mechanic and then a sort of standard battle and then another battle with an interesting mechanic. There was always something to do, so whether you were saving characters in fights, trying to raid ruins to capture get the items out of them before the thieves got them, so there was lots of sub mechanics as well going on, and that's something Fire Emblem's never done, that's something Tactical Ogre's never done, and they've all really played second fiddle. Now yes, the combat system in Tactical Ogre is more advanced, but overall the game is just dull and unforgivingly hard in comparison. Shining Force 3 took the tactical RPG series to a whole new length, and very few games have been able to successfully copy and reproduce this formula. They could have done a few things a bit more in depth, certainly the attacking, like when we looked at Mysteria the Realm of Law the other week. Mysteria has a much more advanced combat system, and if you applied that to Shining Force 3 you would get an even added depth of layer. And that's not to say Shining Force 3 does have some improvements in the combat system over the previous games. There are some, like the weapons levels and stuff, that aren't present. It really is it was basically Camelot took what they learned from Shining Force 1 and 2 and the Gadian games and really did improve at no end. So I'm just going to let the rest of this battle play out and you can see the various characters. I'll show Jane doing the finishing blow. I just want to show off a few of the spells, even though I'm not attacking every turn, because this fight, as you can see, is really easy with the level of my characters I'm using. I thought I'd pick a few of the more comedy characters as well. I certainly wouldn't advise this team for the later battles though. I mainly did it because I knew I wanted to beat the Kraken fairly quickly. There are lots of premium disc battle videos already out there, but I just thought I'd show you the first battle for those of you who haven't actually picked up the premium disc. And if you haven't played Shining Force 3, well, while the English version's quite expensive, the Japanese releases are fairly cheap and it's well worth picking up. Only the premium disc, which you see here, can cost you more than the others because of course it was only a 3 giveaway and of course it's had a relatively low print run. But that's, I think I've said enough now. Just let you watch the end of this video. Like I said, maybe at some point I'd like to cover Shining Force 3 in more detail. It is a fantastic game and really is worth playing if you own it. It is a must-have if you have a Sega Saturn. And one final note, if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe to our channel, Randomised Gaming. If you'd also like to see more Shining Force 3 coverage at some point, please do leave a comment below. Certainly it's something I would like to cover more on the channel, but again, we said before, RPGs are very, very time consuming. But this video and more will be used in a big Saturn video coming in the future, so stay tuned for that video. And apologies to people who aren't Saturn fans, we will be finishing the Saturn coverage in the not too distant future.